up? What up? Hey, Chad.
Yo, yo, how's it going?
What's up, man? Another good week.
GM.
GM. It's Chad there.
Yep.
Good morning.
Good morning. GM, GA, GN, we got them all.
Yeah, you guys want to get started? I mean, we're at the hard cap right now, liquidity. Maybe we can start on that little point. That's something that's been a long time coming, and now we're finally like at. I mean, it's a completely just different state for the network because like we're actually at the point where you can't actually add liquidity anymore, so savers or dual LPs. So it's something that we just haven't seen before, uh, being that high up in like terms of security to liquidity. So I'm wondering what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of bittersweet. It's probably much due to the rune price and just like altcoin prices kind of across the market. I mean, I'm sure liquidity's been. You probably have maybe you guys know the stats a bit better than I do, but yeah, I don't know like how much of that is due to new liquidity versus just like the market action, but probably not the way to hit the cap that we would all have hoped.
Yeah, it's almost all due to rune price basically. And just the amount of total rune in the pools versus the total amount of rune in the bond module. And with the change to effective security, I think we talked about this on the last space, but with the change to effective security, where there can only be enough rune in the pools that that's equal to two thirds of the lowest bonded nodes. So like basically what it would take to disable attack the entire network. That's the hard cap for liquidity. So for security, you can actually add liquidity past that point, and that's the point that we're at. And basically, yeah, it's just because of rune price going down and bond staying about the same, liquidity staying about the same. So when the value of that rune dips the below the cap, then you can't add any more liquidity to the network. So at this point, basically, you can still make swaps and everything like that, and you can even swap synths. That was a recent change that was just made where you can actually still do arbitrage and swap synths even though with the hard cap, because that doesn't really change security, but you can actually add more liquidity to the network to stop it from getting too top heavy, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, Savers, was pretty successful in accomplishing what it was trying to do, which in the end, I think it had about like, highest, I think it was like 720 Bitcoin. And so that obviously added a lot of liquidity to the network, which is obviously a really good thing. And then like kind of at the tail end of it, we saw this kind of like alt alt murder. Like last week, we saw a lot of alts just get majorly slashed. And obviously, we're not immune to that kind of stuff, and so that kind of tipped it over the edge. But um, something we were expecting. I remember I called that out. They were gonna we might hit the cap at some point in the next few weeks or month or so. It happened quicker than I thought. I thought it was gonna happen, to be honest with you, but it still happened nonetheless. Um, it's not to me. It's not really a big deal. Like it's not really an issue in the context of like the security of the network, right? The issue comes in a place of like, us wanting to add Binance Smart Chain to the network, right? Or add new layer ones of that. That's where it becomes a problem because now there's no space in the security to allow us to add, Binance Smart Chain or other layer ones, for example. So we got to do a little bit of work and kind of like increase the security so that we can start adding Binance Smart Chain and other things to the network, which would be really good.
Yeah, that's what I'm really bummed about, not being able to get BSC online because Yeah, I mean, I've been looking forward to BSC and like finally getting integration on the road, just like something else to ship with Trust Wallet, and just something that there is like clear use for, and like there's a million blockchains that want like cross chain bridges, but like there's only a couple that actually do like significant volume cross chain, BSC being one of them. So I was like really looking forward to that, but now it's looking now. Yeah, it's looking like it just can't happen right now because there isn't enough security under the network to actually like seed pools and getting that going. So that's just an unfortunate uh, consequence of this whole thing. I was hoping that we'd beat the clock on that, but it didn't happen, unfortunately.
So that was the only holdup on that, right? Just the hard cap, nothing else going on the BSC side, or
Well, I'm not sure if there's like obviously I know like some node operators are having some issues just running the BSC chain, and I don't know whether that has contributed at all towards like any of the Thor node problems that have been happening recently. It's all kind of, I mean, I don't know if Chad has like a better perspective on that, but it's also possible that the BSC chain just isn't that stable in the first place and is causing other issues. So like, what do you have you noticed anything about that, Chad?
Yeah, I mean, I think for some people, right, if you're running your node on bare metal, right, and you're adding BSC, it's going to be a significant amount of resources, both CPU and memory, and also disk I/O, like reading or writing to the disk. Um, and that can have can affect the performance of other daemons on the same hardware, right? Like, and that can cause that particular node to be like a little bit slower to, observe transactions or assign transactions or something like this, and that could be a contributing factor to some of the issues that we saw over the weekend, the last week or so. But I think actually what might have been a larger contribution to this that I think that I had initially had considered or thought of, and that's something we've been talking about in the last few hours, is that recently we made a change to the network that did this like best efforts attempt to recover funds that people sent to an inactive or an old retired vault, right? So if you send like some Bitcoin to a vault that was around 2 weeks ago but not around today, historically speaking, your Bitcoin would be more or less burned, and you wouldn't have access to it anymore because the network's not going to observe a vault that's not an active Asgard vault. And so I think the problem came to play is that we made this code change to where it will continue to observe and just do refunds to these older vaults. But I don't think I understood like how that can affect the performance of Bifrost, because it has to do a lot of computations in order to like generate the addresses, and it ended up being like possibly like hundreds of volts possibly. I'm actually not sure what the exact numbers off my head, but like it being a larger quantity of volts than I originally expected it to be. And so all the additional addresses that we're like monitoring as a network is just causing more queries and more processing power to monitor those things. And so that might be a contributing factor to the issues we've been seeing lately as well. And so we'll see. We're going to make some code changes, and a new version of Thor node's going to be coming out, which is 1.13.1. That will probably just do some optimizations, performance improvements to kind of help alleviate some of these issues.
Yeah, so not directly related to Binance Smart Chain, but yeah, people were like reporting issues about BSC itself, but that wasn't really contributing towards like whether you like go or no go. It's just clear that like it doesn't make sense to launch it right now because there literally is no space under the hard cap security. But then yeah, what Chad's saying is also related to just the general like performance issues that have been happening. Like I've seen a lot of like key sign fails and just like issues that like haven't been a problem recently. But yeah, I think it could easily be caused by that. I mean, if you think about it, 3 vaults times however many, let's see, a churn every 3 days that generates 3 vaults going back 2 years. Like that's quite a lot of vaults that needs to be monitored. So totally makes sense like why it's so resource intensive. So hopefully all those problems can be ironed out soon. Then we can like get back on the horse of like just continuing to function like within in a timely manner of the network. There's just been a lot of like delays and you know funds taking a while to sign out. Like Dogecoin swaps taking a long time, Bitcoin swaps taking a while, like mempool things with Doge and Bitcoin. So like, would be really nice to see it get back on normal schedule.
Yeah, this is one of the funny things. Like, I was just kind of thinking the day that like the mempool for Bitcoin is massive, and Litecoin's pretty large, and Doge is pretty large. And I'm like, look at this, and I'm thinking to myself, like, are we in a bear market? What's going on here? It's
It says
kind of
DRC
funny.
20s.
I know it's a DRC 20s and DR. It is like it's just such a funny thing that like it's bear market, but yet the mempool is just like thrashed. That's such a kind of like
Yeah.
counterintuitive thing.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like a bullish thing, really. Like I saw some other graph just about total active crypto wallets. I don't know where I'll have to find this again, but it was just like up and up and up and up, and I was like, damn, like really? Even in these times, that's really incredible to see. So now we just needed the price to come back.
I'm very curious about this particular bear market just because we got here in unusual circumstances, not through the normal like crypto like blow off tops and all this kind of stuff. We got here kind of like prematurely in a sense, and so like maybe the bear market is not fully really like a bear market in the traditional sense of crypto, but rather just like people are still there, people are still trading, people are still interested, people still engaged in some regard. They're just like waiting for something to kind of like re kick off and the bear market again.
What are your like just broad thoughts on these last couple of weeks? I don't know, like how are you staying sane? What are you thinking about?
What do you mean, like in terms of like crypto or in terms of THORChain, or
Oh, I meant broader, like just all of crypto. Like it's just kind of a wild time once again that we're just like not just talking price, but just like all this regulatory stuff, and I'm sure that got you worked up and thinking about stuff.
um, yeah, I mean, I should probably not make any comments about regulatory stuff. That'd be the smarter move for me. But I think in general, I always tend to stay focused on what's happening. Like get rid of people are uh, understandably reactive to prices and market situations and that kind of stuff. But I always say just kind of stay true to like what are we shipping, what are we doing, what is the actual fundamental value of things? Is that value going up or is that value going down? And for THORChain specifically, that value is still going up quite significantly. And in the market in general, I think there's a lot of like things happening outside of THORChain in the crypto markets that are like kind of interesting stuff. Like Uniswap V4 was announced the other day, for example, right? That could be a really interesting thing. So like there's a kind of a disconnect in my mind between the sentiment and the fundamentals, right? The sentiment doesn't really match the fundamentals in my mind. So because of that, I kind of, for the most part, shrug off, the sentiment because it's just what people do. Like I feel like crypto especially is very overreactive to news. Like when something good happens, people are like blow it out of proportion, and when something that's like bad happens, they blow it out of proportion, like on the downward, motion. So it's just like people are just very reactive and emotional and reactive to the things that happen in the market. So um, Binance being kind of like sued by SEC and Coinbase as well. It's shocking, but also not shocking at the same time. It's kind of like it's predictable, but still kind of surprises you when it happens. You know what I mean? Um, I'll say that like I think uh, Gary Gensler is doing what the hell he wants without any real like thought about it. To me, it doesn't seem like it's not very thoughtful, right? Just um, he's not making an argument or adding any kind of clarity what is or is not a security. He's just saying this is a security and this is not a security. And he even has some silly comments that the report kind of referenced about some statements that Anatoly had said or whatever. Just like, it's just a very weak argument, if you ask me. It's really kind of yeah, there's just no way to put it. Like, it's just a very weak argument about what this is and why it is a security, why it classifies it as a security or not. It's just nonsense, if you ask me.
Yeah, totally agree. And it's largely just distraction from what's actually going on and like the stuff that we're building. And I mean, at least to me, it makes it more clear that like what we're doing is actually important and bringing like true, you know, true decentralized exchange to the market, and just like continuing to iterate on top of that, and like really building this layer where people can move across chains. Like obviously, like, it's been kind of hammered home over the past couple of weeks, but I think anything that comes out of that end of things just makes it more clear that what we're doing is like not only important, but necessary to happen. Like if Binance.us becomes a crypto only exchange, I think that kind of validates everything that that we're doing here. Not that it's not validated already, but it just adds further validation to that whole premise of being a crypto only exchange.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this whole SU thing should like make it even more clear of why we need something like a THORChain in the industry. Like, if we're going to rely solely on Binance to get us cross chain, like, that's obviously not a good thing. That's very clear. And honestly, like, I don't understand why projects, and I don't want to mention specific ones, but like, I don't understand if you are one of those projects that got labeled that as from the SEC as security or whatever the hell it is, and got delisted from exchanges or whatever the hell it might be. Like, you're literally being smacked in the face with THORChain. Like, it should be so blatantly obvious what you need to do as a project is to run, not walk towards THORChain, and have your users and your volume being passing through an exchange like THORChain. Like, that should be like blatantly fucking obvious. Like, if it's not, I don't know what to tell you. Like, get your head checked at this point,
Totally, yeah. Each time one of these things happens, like, I feel like in our circle, the first reaction is to be like excited for THORChain. Like when FTX blew up, it's like, oh my god, like, is this time for THORChain to shine? And like, it is and it isn't. It's like people still haven't fully like had the rug ripped out from under all the other things to be left with. Yeah, like, who knows what it'll take? But I mean, so many things are being built and pushed, and like integrations and all that. So like, it's happening, whether it's fast or slow, it's happening.
Yeah. One exciting thing like related to that, Chad, is Trust Wallet. Like this last week, finally got all the different swap routes into Trust Wallet. So we're like finally officially powering all of the cross-chain swap routes that's supported by THORChain, minus Rune actually, which we need to get going, and like some ERC20s and things. But we have right now we have every single major network that THORChain supports is now supported in Trust Wallet, iOS and Android, to be able to swap. They also don't charge an affiliate fee, by the way, so it's pretty much the cheapest place where you can swap. Anywhere that's like THORChain roots, and we're powering like thousands and thousands of swaps going through Trust Wallet. It's the highest like volume interface that's a THORChain like powered interface. So just like, I don't know. There's just the things that I think about when everyone's like talking about like, oh, prices down, like this or that. It's like, we actually have real users and like real interfaces that use like our valuable services.
Yeah, the funny thing about that is that like that it's still like one of the biggest traders of Rune, even though it isn't. That's so funny to me because they're still like causing a lot of trade volume for the Rune asset, even though, yeah. you said what you said about trading root to root directly. Yeah.
Have you watched the stats, Cow? Like, have you seen the trust swap stats since that update? Is there like a noticeable uptick?
Uh, yes. There's like, wait, let me pull this up right now. There's like a huge tail. So like, there's a graph here which shows like the different swap pairs that are like going through. And so like obviously Bitcoin's been paused for a little while, so this is not like what it would be normally. But the highest swap. So this is for the past week. Over the past 7 days, we've seen about 750 swaps between BNB and ETH. About 500 between BNB and sorry, between Bitcoin and ETH. And then like 150 between BNB and BTC, and then there's like a huge tail of assets now of people like swapping like Doge to Litecoin or like Bitcoin Cash to Atom or whatever. Like there's a very large variety of swaps, and there's a big concentration in like the major ones, which is like between BNB, ETH, um and Bitcoin. Litecoin is also up there too in terms of like what people are actually swapping, which is like a little bit surprising to me. And it just kind of just goes down the list of just like a bunch of different routes that people are actually using to swap. So it's just more and more pairs that are supported, and so just more and more things that people can do. So like in the past 7 days, how many swaps have we seen in the past 7 days? That's a little over 2,000 swaps in the past 7 days, and that's iOS only. So there's a separate affiliate that they use for Android. But yeah, I mean, Trust Wallet is always looking pretty fresh.
It also like they do it in a software update where you have to update the app on your phone. So for like not everybody updates their apps like every day or whatever. Some people do it like every week or 2 weeks. So I wouldn't take the current numbers all that seriously personally, just because I think there's a lot more people kind of coming in to increase that swap volume.
Yeah. If you're on an old version, then this wouldn't appear. So it is only on the latest version, which I believe it got pushed less than a week ago. So yeah, it's definitely not the full brunt of people swapping.
Right.
But exciting because it's like that's just a huge like area of users where people are just making the swaps, and like they don't need to know or care where it goes. And we see big swaps coming through like pretty much every single day. And I've been seeing like big outbounds coming from THORSwap and coming from Trust Wallet, like real people making like real big swaps.
Yeah, I'm excited when streaming swaps gets launched, hopefully soon, and we can start seeing like massive swaps being pushed through THORChain.
What's the latest on that front? Any updates or new thoughts?
I think hopefully the code to support streaming swaps, like a basic form of it, like I think the first version will probably be very like focused and narrowly scoped, just to kind of get the value prop like out there quicker. That'll probably be in the next like major version, like 114, for example, maybe 115 possibly. And then at that point, it just becomes a little bit of testing. It should be pretty quick and easy to launch that feature, I think. But I think we should be just a few weeks or maybe a month away from it, I think.
Yeah, because I mean, it looks like at this point, so we can't launch BNB because that's just kind of off the table with the hard security cap. Lending, there's still analysis being done on lending by Block Science, who's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes to just do some modeling around lending, and just like they're doing a lot, especially like playing out the different like risk scenarios and just like making it very clear and obvious, like what the failure cases are, like what are like good positions to be in, what are bad positions to be in. Like it's very comprehensive what they're doing, and they're still in the middle of it.
Yep, absolutely. I think lending probably won't be launched for maybe a month from now, just because we wanted to give Block Science more time to do more modeling and validation and blah blah blah. and document, and also very importantly, like documentation of like documenting from a third party perspective of like where are the failure cases, where are the risk fit like factors, what are these, and it's just so everybody we release a document that's very clear and concise, and everybody can read it and understand what it is, what it's not, what's expected, what's not expected, so forth and so on. So yeah, lending probably won't happen for a little while, but hopefully we can, before that lands, we can get streaming swaps kind of snuck in.
Awesome. Yeah, that'll be huge.
Hey guys, thanks for adding me.
So,
Haven't been here in probably 6-7 months, so I'm kind of out of the loop, but it's depressing times right now. But I had a couple questions. I've been in the Rune BUSD LP for like a long time, and I noticed lately well, first off, I guess the ads have been frozen. Did that happen recently, or I guess I must have missed
yeah,
that.
so we were just talking about that. That's the hard cap of liquidity on the network. So yeah, it's you can't add liquidity or savers while the hard cap is hit.
Okay, got it. Is there like a timeline on when that might change, or?
So that's a function of the rune price essentially, and how much is in the bond. So either rune price needs to go up, or the bond needs to increase relative to liquidity.
Okay. So, but it's weird because when you go on Thor, and I'm sure you just talked about it, so sorry if I'm beating a dead horse. But when you go on Thor swap and you look to withdraw, it's showing like 0% of the pool.
So when you go on THORSwap, there's some kind of thing. So we did some checks to make sure that there was like some messages that were shown when you go to add liquidity or to add to savers or things like that. But that shouldn't affect anything like withdrawing. Like you could still withdraw or anything.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Tracking your position and withdrawing should be totally fine. If there's any issue on that front, definitely just ping support in THORSwap Discord, and somebody will get you helped out with that. It might have
just been like a glitchy thing because it was showing like X amount of units, but then it was showing 0. Like it used to show X% of the pool that you had, but it was showing 0, which was weird. I didn't actually try to go through with withdrawing it, but I figured it was fine. I just was wondering if that's like standard. But okay. Anyway, and I mean the other thing too is I'm sure it's just market dynamics. I'm not like a full-on expert with LP structure and like how it works, just the bare bones. But I was definitely noticing that it wasn't, generally, and I guess it's probably a function of low volumes and low swap volumes and things like that. But LP units were definitely not rising with Rune dropping as much as maybe in the past it has, or as much as I would have thought. Is that just basically market dynamics, or is there an explanation that I'm missing on that?
LP units is generally a factor of like people adding liquidity, withdrawing liquidity. That's what causes the LP units to either increase or decrease. The price of Rune or whatever, price of the asset doesn't, like those things have no relationship, or swap volume has no relationship to that.
Okay, so basically no one can add liquidity, so that's the answer.
Basically, yeah. I mean, if you withdraw your liquidity, you'll decrease the LP units of the pool. But LP units like aren't really meaningful much at all. It's just a way for the network to mathematically calculate, how much you owe and how much of the value you get without doing huge computational resources. Like osmosis, for example, doesn't really do it the same way we do it, and so they do like they pay out people like once a day. Right, but the mathematics of how we do LP units allows just do a continuous thing without, a lot of processing power.
Yeah, I guess the thing that was weird, I mean, again, it might just be me being a layman, was that when we had a little mini altcoin season or whatever, 3-4 months ago, I don't even know the exact time frame, but you guys know
years ago.
No, I'm talking about like when Rune had like all altcoins had a mini run kind of recently, and it seemed like my LP units were dropping during that time. Which
I believe your LP units stay static. I don't believe you gain or lose LP units. It's just how many LP units you have in relation to the total pool depth.
Yeah,
like I don't think you just dynamically gain or lose LP units.
Okay, maybe I'm using the wrong terminology.
Yeah, LP units are static for an LP unless you add a withdraw. Savers units, which is basically an LP unit that's like designated by the protocol for the savers people in synthetics, that can dynamically change because of price movements.
Maybe
But
I'm
your
talking
LP
of the
units-
amount of actual rune, because like I added rune single sided.
Oh yes, yes,
Yeah. So I was kind of framing
yeah,
that
yeah.
question wrong, I guess. The level
So
of
it's
rune
an
that I had was dropping as
asymmetric.
prices rising. Yeah, asymmetric,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that's right. Like rune's price performing well or poorly against the asset will change the number. What gets you to either to experience a permanent IL, permanent loss. And so if your rune's price falls relative to asset, you have impermanent loss in that scenario, and you don't take permanent loss. If rune goes up, you'll also experience impermanent loss, but because rune's price is going up and because of how dual LPs work and with synthetics and all this kind of stuff, you actually, I guess it depends on such a situation, but you actually might gain in value in that scenario, even though you lost a little bit from IL. Depends on the situation and how many cents there are.
Yeah.
Blah,
So
blah,
in this specific situation, like if rune's price is going up and you're in a single sided, you're in an asymmetric LP with just rune, you're selling rune as rune price goes up. So as the rune price goes up, you have less rune in your position, if that makes sense. Because LP always sells the stronger asset and buys the weaker asset. So if rune price is moving up, then it's selling that rune for BUSD if you're in the rune BUSD pool. So that's pretty much what that's what happens when you're in an LP essentially on any AMM. If the price of that asset is going up, then you're selling it for the other asset. If that makes sense.
Right.
Also have Zervo requesting to come up. Hey, Zervo.
Yeah. Hey, can you guys hear me?
Oh, he left. Hey, what's up, Zervo? Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah. Sorry to switch the argument. I mean, not the argument, but the conversation from LP to Trust Wallet. Because I've always been curious about that relationship. It was a huge, in my opinion, a good partnership. They're obviously we all know that they have a lot of users. And I'm just wondering if they ever gave you guys any feedback, how the integration or how the what their user feedback is showing. Because I'm just they have 5 million users and the swaps are pretty good, right? But I'm wondering why, how to get more. Why are their users are not swapping more, right? Or they're not aware of it? Is it a learning, a training issue or something like that? For these mobile users, have they gotten any feedback of any kind of stats or whatever behind them normal users doing swaps and what their experiences are and what needs to be improved or they're happy with it? And just curious to hear what they think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some stuff. So I don't think they collect any direct feedback about it. I don't think there's a rate your swap experience thing. Although I think that's a good idea and something that they should do. But I don't think they've collected direct feedback like that. But I have seen things on Twitter and talk to their team quite a bit, obviously. And they're very tight knit internal group kind of finance type organization that's very tight to themselves, I would say. But they haven't really provided any negative feedback around anything that we're doing. They're super excited to get things online, get things rolling, and just see swaps come through. It's been very good from them. As far as letting more users know, I did make a tweet yesterday about some marketing, and I can't say too much right now, but that's something that I feel that I'm very, very close on. And so there's been some stuff in the works to make sure more users in general know, and definitely more Trust Wallet users making their first swap and doing some swaps. That's something that I've been directly working on, and something that we're right on the precipice being able to do it. We just need Bitcoin to hold out a little bit longer. The pauses that over the past couple weeks have been some challenges, and obviously there's nothing we can really do if we're trying to do a campaign or something like that, and Bitcoin goes down. That's definitely not a good look for us. So Like,
Yeah,
I think we just
is
need
that
a
because
couple
like you
small
were
things.
like,
Yeah.
is that like nodes were not upgrading or something like that? I just didn't understand why it was paused or in that. And maybe I got in late, and I don't know if you guys covered it or not. And I'm just wondering if what was up.
Yeah, so basically there was like a bug in the code that was probably introduced like shortly after the Terra collapse happened, so a little like about a year ago. And there was the bug that was introduced and like it was just sitting there kind of dormant in the code. And then we got into some extreme scenarios with Bitcoin because of the mempool being huge and blah blah blah, and all these things happening along with buying a smart chain. Daemons are running on bare metal boxes, cause them to be might be a little bit slower. Plus the inactive vaults thing I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation. Like there's like a plethora of things just all kind of hit simultaneously that just caused this bug to like show itself. That normally would never even get to the case where it would even be an issue. And so once that happened, we realized, oh, hey, there's an issue with how we're managing gas for rescheduled transactions, blah blah blah. And like we can fix it and carry, and we've already fixed it. It's already in 112, we believe, and like it's already been solved and fixed, whatever. And so that's the reason why, because we don't want to cause nodes to get slashed inappropriately, and so we wanted to make sure we had Bitcoin pause, fix the issue, and then go ahead and resume it, which is what we've already done. So like that's the reason why. It's because we just had some like kind of a latent bug just kind of sit in the code that we weren't aware of until we got into an extreme situation where it actually pushed on that bug in a matter of speaking.
Oh, so it's not paused anymore then, unless I misunderstood or anything
Nope,
like that.
we're live.
Okay, great. Hey, good job, guys. And I was just like the last question I had was like related to I'm super excited about that loan. Loans is like really exciting. And is that going to be if someone wants to just take a loan, is that going to be like you have to go through the THORChain site and do it, or is that going to be through like different portals like Trust Wallet or like THORSwap or Thor Wallet? And, what's the idea behind that?
Yeah, with all of THORChain capabilities and features and that kind of stuff, it's nothing specific to like going to any kind of THORChain site. It's just about UI just supporting the feature or not, right? In the end, like you don't even necessarily even need a UI. Like technically, all you could just sign the transaction like by hand, literally. You could literally do that if you really wanted to. I wouldn't recommend it because it would be quite difficult. But like, just sign a transaction on Bitcoin. That's the only thing you actually have to do. Like that's the only requirement here. So like any wallet that's willing to sign that transaction for you or make it easy for you to accomplish that task, is fine by me. So I think we probably won't see huge adoption in UIs like Trust Wallet, for example, in the beginning. We wanted to do like a kind of a soft launch of lending first, kind of test out the waters, make sure there's no issues or bugs, whatever, before we kind of like start pushing it harder. I know like THORSwap has already got their UI ready to go, so probably when we launch lending, THORSwap will be probably one of the first UIs to support it for sure. But it'll be a slow ramp up, I think, with getting more UIs and such to utilize it. Ideally, I would love to see this being like happen like even within SEX, such as exchanges supporting this lending concept, right? And offering the service possibly.
Amazing.
Maybe. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, I know Lens and Shapeshift are also interested in doing front ends for lending, so that you can expect those pretty much out of the gate as well.
Great. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Yep, no worries.
Yo, Finblow.
Hey guys, it was great to see Trust Wallet support AVAX and Doge and the others. Just curious, and sorry if you mentioned it already, but do you know if they have any plans to support swaps to and from native Rune?
Yeah, we're trying to get them to do that next. We're sometimes it's a cat herding process, you know what I mean? So yeah, we're working on it. They're working on ERC20s and things. So yeah, we should definitely. We'll get there. We'll get there. We won't rest until we see Rune swaps on Trust Wallet.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, they're a big wallet and they got a lot of things going on, and so I get they're being a bit slow in the uptake, but like I totally get it. Like I don't necessarily blame them or whatever. Like it makes sense to a certain extent. So we just have to be patient in this community.
Yeah, exactly. Like, especially when you're talking about a wallet that serves tens of millions of users, like Trust does, they are very slow to, as they should be, and cautious to deploy new things, test things. You know, we're not in any rush to get this thing like feature complete. Not that we're not in any rush, but we're definitely not like rushing them to just ship. We want to make sure that things are like tested thoroughly and that they're comfortable with everything that they're doing. And so far, it's just been great feedback from them. So we're really happy to see all the roots go live on Trust. And yeah, hopefully we can bring it to some more users soon and really get the word out there that you can do all these kinds of swaps. So I would look out. Hopefully we can get that going in the next couple of weeks. We have some good plans on that.
One thing we talk about is saver yield. You want to talk about, Kyle?
Yes, saver yield. So I believe what just passed the vote actually is uh, it's a sliding saver yield. So in the past, saver yield is 50% of the total yield going to that pool, I believe. So this would essentially bring down saver's yield, and reason for that being synth utilization is greater than 50% of the pools, and we're also at the hard cap, so POL can't deposit into the pools themselves. So so basically what needs to be done is, since liquidity can't be added to the network, like we can't continue to like incentivize people to deposit in savers because it's not even possible to deposit in savers. So what just passed is a sliding curve where the network changes the amount, the ratio of the total liquidity fees, how much it gives to savers and how much it gives to LPs. So I believe at 50% synth utilization, it gives like half of what it currently does. I believe I'm not exactly sure on the exact numbers of this, but I believe it should see at least a 50% decrease in the yield for savers, since we're at or above the 50% synth utilization mark. Chad?
Say that again.
I believe that we should see a 50% decrease in the savers utilization for like Bitcoin, for example, because we're at the 50% mark, and lower than that for pools that are very low synth utilization, like Doge or BNB.
Yeah, I believe that's true. I think in the current like Mamirs, it is like tweakable, right? We got a couple levers we can pull on to push it up or push it down, right? So we have the ability to fluctuate, or not fluctuate is the wrong term, but the ability to adjust as we need to, as we want to on the protocol. But I think that's what its starting position is probably going to be.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something we did kind of discuss last week, and nothing that like has come to be from like a protocol perspective. But what are your thoughts about incentive pendulum and like moving that to be in line with the hard cap? Because I don't know, like at least like from my like understanding of things, and this is really one of the things that impressed me about THORChain when I first learned about it is like this whole mechanism that really defines the relationship between security and liquidity, which is the incentive pendulum, changing where it gives rewards based on like where it's needed. And, right now I think there's a share factor of like 33% going to the LPs, even though we're at the security hard cap, right? So, I'm not sure whether that was going to go to like a vote or an ADR on, whether we're going to move to change the incentive pendulum to go off the effective security rather than like the total security of the network, or like if you've had any other discussions about that.
Yeah. Well, let's touch upon savers first, then we'll touch upon this concept. So when this goes live, it's not live yet, by the way. First of all, it passed a kind of a symbolic vote within the node operators, and so it'll probably go live um, this week at some point, or within the next week or so. But the potential issue here, if you ask me, is that if you get savers to leave, then that creates an effect sell pressure on their own asset, right? So people are withdrawing one asset or withdrawing the Bitcoin, which means people are trading and dumping the rune. So so I'm worried about that aspect to it, right? About like, is this going to create more of an exodus of savers than we want to see, and by extension of that, create a larger degree of rune sell pressure than we want to see? That's one thing, right? That will also cause the TVL to drop some, which I think is not necessarily a bad thing right now because we wanted to add Binance Smart Chain and all this kind of stuff. But that's the first part, and the second part is it's similar to that, is what you were just saying about adjusting the pendulum. Like doing that right now may not be the best time to do it. Although I'm not necessarily against the concept of doing it. I'm just more or less saying like getting LPs to leave now in a time when ILP is quite high, right? And so like we would just we would tell a bunch of LPs to get the hell out, pay them a good amount of rune and IL, and then possibly maybe some of them decide to sell their rune instead of just holding the network. They had a bad experience maybe, or whatever the hell it might be, and maybe they're a little bit salty about getting their yield change underneath them, whatever it is, and then having that kind of a reaction to it. So like that's why I'm thinking that like changing the pendulum at this stage, at this moment, is probably not the best time to do it. The best time to do it is at like the top of the bull, right? Is if we could magically wave a wand and pick when we want to do it. So in my opinion, we should probably hold off on that, on making those kind of pendulum changes, if you ask me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just find it difficult to like come to reason about this like in my own head, just about like because I totally understand your point, but at the same time, like if the network stands is that there's no more space for additional liquidity, then there's no space for additional liquidity, and it's continuing to pay out rewards seems like that it encourages liquidity, and it like at least from my initial understanding of just the whole mechanism, it always seemed to me that that was the stance of the network, where if it's undersecured, then you need to then shift the you need to shift the balance to become more balanced, right?
Yeah, and that's true. To be fair, I mean, right now, node operators are making what? I think it's like what, 15%, something like this, is their APY right now, or something like that. So then the question just becomes like, if you give nodes like 20% instead of 15%, how much would that shift the amount of bonded rune in the network? And that's a hard thing to reason about.
Directly it pays rune from the reserve directly into the bonds, and it directly increases the amount of rune that is in the bond module.
That's true. No, that's fair. That's true. The amount is probably not significant enough to the numbers we want to see.
Yeah,
happen,
like probably like 30K rune a day. Like it's not. You're right. It would take a very long time to actually like get to any kind of significant numbers there.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting topic and something that the community can definitely have a debate and discussion over. I think for right now, there's a lot of things in flight, or like a lot of things happening, and we don't want to overload people with like, we're changing 10 things at once, right? let's not. We can slow down the cadence a little bit. Lately we've been shipping too much, having too many, like shipping too many features, shipping too many like changes to the protocol. Like it's a lot for people to follow, I guess, which I totally understand if that's the case. I think for right now, I think we should just focus on the most important things, but eventually get to all these things, and either do something or don't do something voted on by the community.
Yeah, so about the Sabres yield, is that like the final solution that you'd like to see for the Sabres yield, or I think you're advocating for something different, or yeah, just do you think that's the best way to accomplish like what we need to?
I mean, I personally, I'm not a fan of the change of the to Sabres yield. I think that the problem that I have with it is that it's trying to solve an issue, right? Which is we're having too many synths in the network relative to what we want to have, and its solution is not um, economically aligned to the problem. It's economically aligned to something else, which is some yield between LPs and savers, and some balance between those two individuals based upon how much risk and reward savers want and how much risk and reward LPs want, and what is the kind of like the optimum thing between those two people, those two class people. That's detached from the actual problem we're trying to solve, which is how much synths exist in the network, right? For the network's benefit, which means deeper pools, right? So because it's not actually aligned to the problem, it's just solving it through some other mechanism. Um, it's probably either going to undersolve the issue, undercorrect the issue, or it's going to overcorrect the issue. One of those two things. Which one? I don't really know. We'll find out. You know, either savers are sleepy, and we cut their yield in half because of this vote that just happened, and they don't even notice, they don't even care, and they don't even leave, right? Or everybody's paying attention, savers are paying attention, and they think that new yield is not good enough to warrant the protocol risk of the protocol holding their Bitcoin, possibly, or whatever their own calculus is to determine whether or not they keep their Bitcoin in there or not, or they don't want to pay the fees to leave, or they mind paying the fees, or they don't mind paying the fees, whatever it might be. We'll find out through the market of how reactive the market is to this kind of yield change up for savers. If you're a dual side LP, like this is a good thing for you. Like it's money, it's extra money for you in your pocket, more yield for you. So, stick around. But that's my fear, right, about doing this. The proposal that I kind of proposed to the team on this regard was instead of doing a curve like of savers, it's being a cliff system. So once the yield got above 50% utilization, yield goes to zero, and once it goes 50% or less, it goes back to 50%, and just kind of is more immediate because the economics would align with what the problem is, what we're trying to achieve. Like we want there to be 50% cents. Like that's creates a deeper pool. A deeper pool means lower fees. Lower fees means more trade volume. Like we've seen this, right? We don't want to have a 20% utilization. Ideally, we want more, right? We want the pool to be as deep as possible to garden the largest amount of swaps as possible, right? That's my feeling on it, and so I'm a little bit nervous about this change personally, and I'm concerned about it being either underreactive or overreactive to the issue. But maybe I'm wrong. I certainly am happy to admit. I hope I'm wrong on this case.
Yeah, I mean, how do you wrestle with the fact that obviously we want more liquidity, but we also have hard cap and a limit to how much we can actually have on the network. So like that's just where things get a little difficult and hazy for me, just like looking at the path forward. So like, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, like so, the incentive pendulum as it is now is just trying to balance between, nodes and LPs. Let's call savers an LP because they are a liquidity provider for the network, right? That's the balance it's trying to strike between those two things, and that's not changed really, other than the pendulum operating for different over the max TVL, which we were just talking about a moment ago. But savers, like, it doesn't really matter from the network's perspective of that pendulum, whether it's 90% savers, 10% savers, or anything in between. Like in the end, from this perspective, it's just trying to achieve a balance between nodes and people who are providing liquidity into the pools, right? Um, Adding a secondary incentive pendulum detaches from that pendulum's purpose, and it's achieving a new balance between two different characters. The first pendulum is about node operators and or more accurately bond providers, and people who are providing liquidity into the pools. And the second one's doing between people who are dual-sided, people who are single-sided, savers versus LPs. And that second one is not really aligned with growing the pools necessarily. It's just aligned with having a balance between two like types of users, and how much they provide, how much reward they get for the risk that they're taking, and so forth and so on. That's not necessarily a bad thing, though. Like that thing, but it's not aligned with what the first pendulum is trying to accomplish, which is to maximize deep security in deep pools.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, totally understood. Just figuring out how to actually grow the pools like dual sided is like kind of the crux of the issue then.
Well, we all the network really wants is to make sure that dual sided are 50% or more of the liquidity in that particular pool, right? Within that context, growing the actual total amount of liquidity in the pool, that is a different topic or a different angle of conversation. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
How do we grow? How do we get deeper pools? Like, I mean, I would love to see the TVL of THORChain to be a billion plus or multi billions in our pools, and I think we'll get there eventually. To be honest with you, but how we accomplish that is not the conversation about how much savers yield getting versus LP yield. That's not going to get us to a billion TVL, right? I don't think that's going to accomplish that by itself. We need something more. We need more things fighting in that direction than just twiddling with saber yield. It has to be things like lending. It has to be things like streaming swaps, things that like really provide significant value and would drive value into those pools in a meaningful way.
Who's on the other side? Just curious. Like, I would love to hear like the other argument, for it, because it sounds like, I mean, it already passed, right? Yet then hearing kind of like the case against it is interesting. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear hear both sides.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could like give an argument for the case for it. I mean, the case for it is that something needs to be done about the savers yield, and this is like a simple solution that maybe it's not the the best solution for this problem, but it is a potential solution for this problem, and I think it definitely needs to be monitored, like whether this is like the right solution or not, and we can adjust as necessary. But I think this is something to like get out there. It's something that seems like a reasonable fix to the problem, and does attempt to solve for the issue of too many synths in pool need to lower the amount of synths in the pool, and we can monitor and see whether it works, whether it doesn't, and then adjust as necessary. But I think this is just that it originally started as something that's like, okay, yeah, this seems like a reasonable solution. Let's get it in and get it merged and get a vote on as quickly as possible. But it's not like it's a bad, I wouldn't call it like a bad or like or rushed solution. I just think that it was one of the early ideas to make this happen, and it could evolve into something else if this like turns out to either under or overcorrect.
Yeah, we should as a community we should be monitoring that and asking ourselves, is this correcting the problem we're trying to correct? Is this creating new issues we don't want to be dealing with, so forth and so on, and adjust accordingly, right? And it's okay to get things. It's okay to make mistakes sometimes, right? To be fair, like we're all humans. We all, even the node operators are all human as well, right? What they vote on, they might get things wrong from time to time. That's just a natural thing of just humanity. But the important thing is that we don't put our heads in the sand and just kind of ignore facts and reality and what's actually happening, and we be honest with ourselves and honest with the community about like this is working or this is not working, and what do we want to do about it.
Yeah, what did you think about my idea of basically look? So like when there's too many sabers, or aka when there's too many synths in a pool, uh, basically giving back the saber that is in the highest percent, like that has proportionally the highest amount of profit in that sabers pool. Basically cashing them out and giving them their initial capital back. Like, I'm curious to hear what you actually thought about that idea. Because it seems to me like it seems like a fairly equitable way to moderate the amount of synths that are in the pool, while keeping with the basic promise of synths being like this, no IL single sided product. So it doesn't break the premise of sabers at all, but it creates an equitable way where we can have a mechanism to decrease the total number of synths, but without like a lot of the downsides of like either decreasing yield or doing like other things that could like affect people's perceptions of like what the pool is, or like what they thought it changing as they deposited. Yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think about that.
I mean, I like it, to be honest with you. Like, I think that would have been a better solution to this problem than what creating another pendulum on top of a pendulum. Just because, one, it doesn't get people to leave prematurely, or in a way we want there to be deep pools, right? And two is it doesn't require the savers people to correct the problem when there is a problem. The network will correct its own problem on its own behalf when it needs to, right? Rather than just like relying on somebody to say, oh, hey, the yield's low, and okay, I'm going to go ahead and pay fees to leave now and go through that process. It's better for the network if the network's able to handle it itself, right? Not rather than asking nodes to handle it for them. So I'd personally much rather do that than what we're doing now personally, but that's just my 2 cents.
Wait, just to clarify, you're saying the saver with the largest pool share would essentially just be like kicked out, but then it affects very few people.
So
like
my idea. So this is just my idea on like how to like another method to solve this problem of problem being too many synths in the pool. Synths being the largest utilizer of sabers. So the idea of mine, which is like I don't know whether people support this or not. This is just my random idea that you find there will be one saver that is the highest PNL, like the highest percent gain over what they initially deposited, and then that person like reasonably is the most profitable saver on the network. There's always going to be a most profitable saver. So you choose the most profitable saver, and then you say, well, congrats to the most profitable saver, but we can't support any more savers on this network. So here is all your Bitcoin back. And you stream out a swap back to them, and you give them back all their principal and all their profit. And then, I mean, that's pretty much the entire idea, where it's like, it basically, it cashes out the person that is in the highest percentage of profit. Because I mean, to me, that seems like the most fair way of doing it. You could do it the largest, but it seems that would have its own problems. But yeah,
I would go a little bit further, and you wouldn't reject the individual fully. You would probably just do a partial.
Yeah, right? I've thought about that, and that actually probably wouldn't solve the problem, because if you partially do it, that creates a much higher mental thing going on, where it's like you have a position that like sometimes could get partially ejected, then you get some of it back, and you have to redeposit. By just cashing out fully, that like, so there's been about a total of like 10 Bitcoin earned by all the savers. Like 10 synthetic Bitcoin has been minted and given to the savers since like savers have started depositing. Even if you took out all that 10 Bitcoin, which is everyone's profit per se, like distributed around every saver, that doesn't really scratch the surface of the synth utilization. Like I don't think that would really move the needle at all. Like I thought about just like, yeah, you could just take the cash in people's profits and give them back the profits and keep the principal. But in the end, that doesn't actually solve it doesn't meaningfully bring down the synth utilization at the end of the day. And it seems to me like giving back like 50% of someone's deposit seems kind of weird.
It does solve the problem in the sense that you do drive down synth utilization to the specific amount that you're targeting. In this case, let's just call it 50%. So it just still accomplishes the goal, right? Like if you just do an entire position irrespective to the actual target we're going for, then you'll naturally overshoot it. Which maybe we're okay with that. Maybe that's not a big deal. It depends on the size of the particular individual, right? That individual could have like 300 BTC, for example, and that would be, an extreme scenario. But like, you wouldn't want to eject 300 BTC from savers. That would be just way too much, right?
Yeah, true. But we don't have any more than like 30.
Yeah. No, and with streaming swaps, that could shift though, because streaming swaps make it so cheap to get in, cheap to get out. So it makes it more practical to be able to have like a 1,000 Bitcoin position in the savers pool.
Well, you physically can't have 1,000 rune.
No, you really can't. You literally cannot now. I'm just saying that like we don't have somebody with a 50 Bitcoin position or whatever, just because the fees to get into that would have been absorbently expensive. And with streaming swaps, if we had streaming swaps this entire time, for example, like just roll back the clock and like we got streaming swaps working 6 months ago or whatever, then likely we'd probably have somebody who was more than 30 BTC. That we'd probably have somebody that was closer to 50 or even 100. And then we want to eject that much BTC. Anyways, it's an interesting question. I do like the idea. I do like the approach. I would much prefer to have done that, but and it's something that I had floated to the community, this general concept, like a long time ago. When I floated the idea of negative interest rates, I also floated this concept as well. But neither one got too much traction in the community. So
yeah, negative interest rates, to me, that totally breaks savers, and like I do not like it solves the problem, but it breaks the product of savers. So that's why I like that idea as a concept that doesn't break the concept of savers and just keeps it as like an attractive product people can use, people can build on top of. But it it still solves the issue, but not without destroying the entire like premise of the product. It makes it not usable, in my opinion.
Yeah, to be honest, like it's not so much that approach doesn't actually really generate negative interest rates in reality. Like it says that it can do it in theory, but in reality, it probably would never even really get there. And if it did get there, the negative interest rate would be so minuscule in size that it would be basically zero. But it just creates the market psychology we want to get people to leave on their own choice.
Yeah, but the reason that it breaks savers is because basically the entire product of savers is it's not tethered to the price of rune, where there's no exposure to the rune price, but that directly exposes the whatever saver to the rune price, whether like they understand that or not. The saver, if it's possible for the savers to get a negative interest rate based on synth utilization, that does directly expose that saver to the rune price.
That's true. Like with this one that was passed, right? Rune's price goes down. We just passed this whole vote thing. That's true now. Like,
no, because that is just that's it doesn't take away from your earnings / principal.
But your interest goes down relative to Rune's price performance, or up.
Right, but that is much more acceptable than the rest of the bit.
Okay, but we're talking about the same thing. If interest rates go down, and then you're just like it just can't hit zero.
Right, but I think the real difference is like, okay, it can go down, but it can't go negative, right? Like it can't eat into your principal.
But what I'm saying is that like in practicality, it wouldn't go negative. Like on paper, it would, right? In terms of theory, like that's what you're reacting to. It's what the community's reacting to. Is like, oh, everybody's going to lose their money in a negative, blah blah blah. That's No,
And
it would never even get to the negative interest rate where
and
that would even happen.
is your argument that if the minimum was 0%, that people just wouldn't leave because they'd just be like, whatever, like I'll wait it out?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case, right? Like, it's just because Savers is a product that was designed from the get-go to not be a product for degens who are like constantly checking their yields every day, blah, 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 and just constantly switching their positions to something that's more profitable. Savers was really designed for the individual who just wanted to like set it and forget it, walk away, go on vacation and not check their phone every 12 hours to see if their yield is going one direction or the other. That's why, in part, it's 50% yield, a static 50% yield, just to create a very low cognitive idea, and that you don't have to worry about too much about your yield. Like it's fairly consistent to a certain degree. And so the product, people aren't really necessarily paying attention who are in Savers. I don't know what the percentage of people are who are like checking their yields every day and are willing to exit if it was 0%. But even if it did hit 0%, like you can just sit there and do nothing and then wait till tomorrow, and then the interest will go back up because somebody else might leave, and then it becomes like a game of chicken, right? Like interest rates go to zero, me, Thoreau, and Cow are all in the pool together, and we're just waiting for one of us to break. And I'm waiting for Cow to leave because he's going to pay the fees to exit. And then once he leaves, okay, now me and Thoreau are kind of back in the green and start making an interest rate again, blah blah blah. Like that's not how. To me, the incentives there aren't the strongest, right?
Yeah, Mogarchy.
Yeah, I want to bring back an old topic that I don't think I've heard discussed in probably over a year. I think we went through several iterations of this back in the day, which was light nodes, aka vault nodes. And just as we're hitting max TVL, I'm wondering if there's any wiggle room to either bring back that idea or to open up validators to people with smaller amounts of room to run their own validators, just to bring in more people that might be in the project, that might be interested but don't have a $500,000 saved up.
Yeah, Volt node. I haven't thought about Volt nodes in a super long period of time. It's been a while. Well, there's one vote that's actually like started to go on, but it's not like passed or anything yet, about increasing the number of bond providers from 6 to 10. So that there are a handful of nodes in the network today that have already hit the cap of 6. And hypothetically, if we were to increase to 10, maybe that they would increase their bonds. I do want to be careful about adding too many small bond nodes. Like the minimum bond right now is 300,000, and if somebody were to add 300,000 to a new node, it actually could be detrimental to the actual security of the network, or not add to it, but take away, because the effective security is the bottom 2/3, which can go down in that scenario, depending on some things. But like that's something to be considered of. But Volt nodes is kind of an interesting idea that I literally have not thought of for many months now. I have to like brush up on it again, but that could be something we could possibly do. Yeah, because that you wouldn't need like a $300,000 bond. You could do it with a very small amount of room, and it would be effective.
Yeah, I bought a bunch of Vault node domains back in the day, so I'm ready to use them whenever you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me of that concept. I had totally forgotten about it. I'll spend some time this week just kind of mulling it over and thinking about it, and it's how it might be able to help us in the scenario, and get back to you on it.
Cool. That's all I had.
Yeah, I mean, so going along with this whole thing, what did you think, Chad, about increasing the maximum effective bond, where essentially there's an upper limit, not a hard limit, but there's a limit to how big a bond can be before they start plateauing off of rewards. I believe it's it's linear up until that point where it just kind of clips off. And it's like maybe like 950K rune, where if you're above that number, you put 1.5 million rune in a node, it doesn't actually increase the total like bond, right? It does increase the amount of rewards that you're getting, even though you've increased your total bond. Do you think increasing that would help solve the problem by letting like providers like Nine Realms or any other like entity that runs validators to scale up and to run more validators to help solve the problem of security? Or do you think that makes little effect? Now that I'm thinking about it, it probably makes little effect because those are probably the top 1/3 of nodes. So maybe that doesn't actually make a difference.
Yeah, so the reason why there's that cliff, and that right now that cliff is at like, I think it's like 935 or 940,000 rune, is because if you are in the top 1/3 and you have 950, 960, a million point whatever, that extra rune above the 930 or 940 mark is not adding to security. So if I had a node right now and I had like 10 million rune and I just like bonded 10 million rune into my node right now, like it wouldn't actually add any additional security beyond the initial 930 or 940,000 rune. So that's the reason why there's a cliff, is to like create the proper incentives for nodes being like, you know what, if you're going to go above this marker, then maybe just create a new node, and run 2 nodes instead of 1 node. And if you got not 1.5 million rune in your pocket, then just run 2 nodes instead of running 1 effectively. I mean, by doing so, you would actually increase the effective security, like the line in the sand, right? Every time somebody bonds up to a node that is above that line gets moved up, which means there's more security.
Yes, but the issue with continually just bonding more and more nodes, if you're an entity that's like bonding a ton of nodes, like you don't want to be in a position where you're running a significant number of nodes in the network, because that opens up a whole can of worms, being too close to like a Sybil resistance like threshold, and just no one wants to be in the position of like being a majority of the network. Like that is like everyone can agree that it's not like a good position.
Yeah, but that's not the case now. Like there are a handful of community people, like THORChain Bull, and I think D5 Sandy is another one, and Nine Realms is another one, who just run a bunch of nodes and then people can deposit their rune to their nodes and blah blah blah. But the amount of nodes that Nine Realms runs or those people run is not significant enough to be an issue. At least that's true in this current moment, and we can readdress the problem if we get to that place. But at the moment where we would love just to see more security in the network, then reducing barriers to add more security to the network is probably a good thing. If it gets to a place where Nine Realms is running half the nodes, which is obviously never going to happen, but like hypothetically, if it were, then like that would be a significant problem. They would have enough. They would probably have enough nodes to be able to put into one Asgard to be able to rug pull that Asgard if they wanted to in that scenario. Not that they would do that, even if they could do that, but like it just we can deal with that problem when we kind of get closer to it by changing the incentives or something like this. But I don't think that's really something to be concerned about right now, at least.
Brought up NL.
But you know what? Maybe like Mogarky was onto something with his vault node thing, because for people who are bonding up to one of THORChain Bull's nodes or whatever, like they're doing it because they maybe don't have enough capital on their own to do it, or maybe they don't have enough technical like savviness to be able to run their own node, so they're kind of outsourcing it in some sense to THORChain Bull. And if you did the vault node thing, while the technical requirements are still going to be high, the same, the monetary requirements in terms of how much a rune is required to do that becomes a lot lower. You could do it. I think if I remember correctly, and I have to brush up on the design a bit, but like you could theoretically do it with 100 rune, right, or something really really small, and run a vault. You wouldn't be profitable for you because of the cost of running all the infrastructure. You wouldn't make enough income to make it worthwhile, but you could probably do it for like a very low amount of rune, which in that case you can add to security and secure funds in a way that has like a low bond requirement. That could actually might be a catalyst to increasing the security of the network.
Yeah, I don't really remember the whole like. I remember there was a concept of vault nodes, but I don't think we like it was ever really nailed down like what the purpose would be in like, actually adding some kind of functionality or security to the network.
What the purpose would be, or
right? Yeah. What does a? And I know you haven't seen this in a while too. I haven't thought about this in a while either. Like what does a vault node actually do?
It actually increases the amount of security in the network, right? So it's a way for people to bond up, to create a node and bond up. They're not participating in consensus. They're not signing blocks, as the current validators do. They have a secondary. It's like a B class validator that's not validating blocks of THORChain, but just securing funds by itself, right? And by doing so, the effective bond increases, right? Because say hypothetically that there's 100 million rune in validators right now, a validator bond, just to keep the math a little bit easy, and say there was 30 million rune of those kind of like vault nodes bonded up. So the effective security without that 30 million, it becomes probably about like 50 million. Let's just call it 50 million. It's probably a little bit higher than that, but just keep it simple. With the vault security, you actually increase the effective security to I think about 80 million, right? You're actually adding, and it's arbitrarily as much as you want, right? Because those nodes are holding the BDC and the ETH and whatever assets it might be holding. It's assets that the validators themselves don't have access to because it's not in keys that they control. And in order to convince a vault node to be malicious towards one of the vault nodes, even if you Sybil attack the network in this scenario, you still wouldn't be able to rug the BDC, the ETH that the vault node carries, right? Because the vault node's running a full node of its own software, and if you were to Sybil attack the network and then like run your own code, that vault node would basically get a consensus failure. It wouldn't be able to take to receive requests to move funds. So it would just be frozen in its current state, which is what we want, right? And the fact that it runs the other way you can attack it is through malicious or fake transaction observations. But because vault nodes run full daemons of themselves, they can individually verify things. So if, for example, a swap came through and we need to send somebody one BDC to some BDC1 address, the vault node can the validators of the network itself can assign the vault node to, hey, send one BDC to this guy over here. Here's the transaction information. And then the vault node, because it has access to a Bitcoin full node, it can verify that inbound transaction is correct, that the swap logic was correct because of it's running the same rules as everybody else. And if they would change underneath them, you would not be able to run at all. And so that way, like the vault node is able to contribute to security and then have the effective bond be increased. That was like kind of a long spiel there, but hopefully that makes sense to people.
Yeah, I mean, if that's a realistic thing to explore, I that could really like turn the tides on increasing security and really gives like the average rune holder maybe not the average, because I guess there's still the technical requirement, but opens up like a new path to rune on rune yield, which is like kind of the holy grail that so many of us have wished existed. So yeah, I mean, if that can be possible, it'd be incredible.
Yeah, Chad, what did you think about adding more and more bond providers? Like, I mean, we're at six right now, and there's a vote to go up to 10 bond providers per node. Like, do you see that just continuing to increase, or like, because I don't think that we would just continue to increase it indefinitely, obviously, just because of like our own security concerns for this network.
Yeah, I don't think we'll need to like constantly increase it. Um, right now, I think last time I looked, there was like I think 5 or 6 nodes that have hit the 6 bond providers cap. If we were to push it at 10, I would assume, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of those would hit the 10 bond provider cap. And so, like, I think you would get a diminishing return in some sense. Like, you would just, like, if we put it to 100, you wouldn't see, I doubt you'd see nodes with 100 bond, like 100 bond providers being actually utilized. So I don't think we'll actually get to that point where just like increase it forever, to be honest with you. I think we'll increase it for 10 to start, and we'll just see what the network does and what node operators actually do, and react accordingly.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I mean, like, yeah, I understand. I guess I understand the concept of the of what the vault node would be, but you're just getting more and more people because there's plenty of people that just hold like small amounts of rune, right? And it doesn't seem like it solves the problem of really um not this even the right solution to let like the masses participate in like security and being able to contribute a towards a node. That's really just like makes it so more people could run like a full validator, which is already a small subset of like of people who have the technical skills to run a THORChain validator.
Right. It's not a simple task, especially if you're going to do that on bare metal.
Cool. And I
Morgan's
mean,
back.
anything else you guys? Oh yeah,
Something you want to say, Mogard?
is that Moog?
Guess not.
I don't see him as a speaker on my end. Maybe
Oh no,
Twitter's
he's
glitching.
I see him as a speaker on my end. Maybe it's just a Twitter bug.
Weird.
yeah. I mean, anything else you guys want to discuss today? What else is going on?
What's going on? I feel like it's something I'm just forgetting. I there's something I was thinking of earlier in the conversation. I forgot what it was, and now I'm forgetting. I can't remember. Oh yeah, there was one thing that was kind of really fascinating. I did a little bit of work with the help of multipartite around the analysis of of depth versus fees, right? Like the relationship of like how much fees does a pool generate relative to its depth, and like are those two things correlated, or are they not correlated, or whatever? And I mean, I kind of expected them to be correlated personally, but there were some people in the community that maybe did not feel that way. And it was actually really interesting to see like there actually is a pretty good correlation between those two things, that in part, like you can make the argument that in part one of the reasons why THORChain has been performing well relative to other dexes in terms of like trade volume and TVL is because savers and savers is, contribute a lot of liquidity to the network, which also caused a lot more trading in those pools, and more fees to be collected, which is just like obviously really good for the protocol. And then also it kind of creates this really interesting thing of like if you look at any given pool, its depth in Rune and its liquidity fees that's collected in Rune, and you can divide those two numbers and you get like a line. You can see that line on the graph relative to other pools to kind of get, as an easy way to see like how capital efficient is pool A versus pool B, right? For every rune that's added in TVL, how much fees and swap volumes coming through per rune, right? And you can do that analysis and like look at the profitability of a particular pool and see which pools are really profitable for the network, and they're just like producing, a good ratio between the fees collected and the depth of the pool versus ones that are like maybe smaller and not actually having that good alignment. So it's actually kind of an interesting way of how do we analyze how well a particular chain is performing? It's just by looking at the depth divided by room fees collected.
Any standout parts of that data that really stood out to you? I don't remember where this is posted, by the way. I thought I saw it this morning, and now I've lost it.
It's in the economic design channel on Discord. Everybody wants to go check out the graphs and read into it. I think overall, like they're pretty well correlated to each other. Like there's not one that's like way above everybody else or way below everybody else. They're all more like they're fairly similar, but non-surprisingly, like Ethereum and Bitcoin are the kind of the best performers in this regard. And I think I want to say AVAX maybe or Gaia are like the lowest performing ones.
Checks out.
Which makes sense, right? And then the question becomes like, if we were to launch Binance Smart Chain and we had the space to do so, where would that sit, in this list of, chains? Like, which one would it be, at the bottom of it? Would it be at the top of it, right? And we don't really quite know. Probably Trust Wallet would be the biggest driver of that chain than anything else, and so we probably wouldn't see a whole lot of volume until Trust Wallet got their kind of like hands in the game here.
Yeah, very true. I'm not sure how many swaps they drive per day, non-THORChain routes.
Anything else from the audience?
And the haters have been out on full force on Twitter. The reply guys everywhere. It's quite amusing to see. They don't give up, and but I mean it means nothing to like what's actually going on like behind the scenes and like in development of THORChain in general. So just blocking out the noise and keep building is what I'm doing.
Yeah, man, that's all it's all about. Like, it's easy to get distracted by price, and it doesn't matter if we're talking about bear market or bull market. Like the price, not that it doesn't matter, but it's not the end goal here. The end goal is to build something that actually solves a real problem. It's a real value proposition for the industry and for humanity itself. And so, like, I'm always just kind of more focused on that than I am about, price movements or haters on Twitter CCing me on some nonsense tweet. But yeah, I totally know what you're talking about.
Damn, I had something else I wanted to say. Oh, nope.
Yeah. Nope.
Yeah. It was right there.
That was awesome.
Damn it.
That was fucking awesome. Yeah, man. I think.
Oh yeah. We're like right there with like so many like really game changing integrations and like I just really want to see these like go out and live, like things that are just delayed because of like just legal agreements and like things that are just take a while to get out there. And like, man, we're like so close on the precipice of like just releasing more and more like Trust Wallet level like integrations that like I want to see them out so bad.
Sounds like you got some alpha. But yeah, lots happening. Really exciting.
Yeah, that's the thing I wish people would understand more is that, like, it's market's quite bare. Just the industry in general is just like quite in a bare place. But like, we just keep on shipping, right? And we just keep on building new things, shipping major features, whether it be savers or streaming swaps or like lending or whatever it is. Like, integrating with other partners, like you were just kind of alluding to. Um, yeah, man, we're just keep on shipping like crazy. I was talking to, and this is a true story. I was actually talking to a major exchange, and I don't want to name which one, and they were this is true. They were upset with us because we kept on shipping, updates. Like they were frustrated with how frequently we were adding, things and fixing issues and just constantly just shipping new code and just doing what we do. And I was just kind of laughing to myself, what do you want us to do? Just sit on our hands and do nothing? I mean, that's not what we do here as a team. We're constantly looking to ship new things and fix issues.
Shipping too much. There's way too many things that are just going out at every given moment.
Literally, that's the thing they were against. They were you're shipping way too much. I'm just oh, okay, weird.
I agree with them, actually. I'm with them on this.
Well, I'd rather be shipping way too much than most of the other projects in crypto right now, which is shipping way too little or just literally dead in the water. So I'll take that criticism then. I'll take it happily.
Yeah, it's definitely amusing seeing how many people are like, "Oh, is this project dead?" And it's like, "Oh, not really, not really."
Yeah, not in the least. Anything else?
All right, yeah. If no one wants to come back up, then we could wrap it up.
Chad Thoreau, you got anything? Call it quits here.
No, I think I'm good. Definitely not dead. Lots of exciting stuff going on.
We're out here.
We're here. Everyone who's tuning in on these, it's going to be a historic time to look back on. I think it's you actually weathered the storm and didn't just disappear.
Yeah, man. Thanks everybody sticking around. Thanks everybody coming to the space and listen to me and Kyle and Thoreau just yammer on for an hour or two.
Absolutely. We'll do it all again next week. There's a Thor space tomorrow. If people
check you guys integrated WooFi. I mean, anything you want to drop about that integration?
Yeah, so it's live with AVAX, and I believe it gives the best route on a shockingly high number of routes. I want to say I heard 50% plus or something like that. So we'll dig into it tomorrow with the guys from WooFi on the space, and yeah, just to dig into what the secret sauce is that makes that possible. And now that's part of SwapKit. So anyone using THORSwap API, SwapKit, everything that comes with that to get in their own app or DEX or whatever, that's just another new route that'll give great better pricing on this new route. So yeah, it's just always exciting to see the aggregation and SwapKit just continue to be more and more effective.
Amazing. Is it just AVAX routes?
Currently, yes. Have to get back on what else might be in the works, but yeah, AVAX is what's live.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll tune into that space tomorrow then. Thanks. All right. Yeah, let's wrap it up here for today.
Cool. And, wrap it up.
Yeah. All right.
See you guys.
See you guys.
Peace.
Bye.